AI fear-mongering is at its all-time high right now. I'm seeing content across all of my feeds of people talking about the prevalence of artificial intelligence across all areas of our lives. In my feed, it's predominantly around business and people saying that you need to get on AI now, otherwise you will be left behind in business. But I'm also seeing it in a lot of other ways. In people's personal lives, they're talking about how they're using AI to optimize their day-to-day life, their operating system that they've created for their personal lives. And quite honestly, I'm over it. I'm overseeing all this AI hype. So I thought I'd give my 2 cents on the topic because nobody asked. But I also thought it'd be relevant, particularly as it comes to perception, because the way we see things is ultimately what determines how we respond to the circumstances. Now, granted, I'm not an AI expert. I use artificial intelligence quite a bit, especially in my business. But I'm more interested in the mindset component of this because I think that's what most people are struggling to navigate. And I say this, I'm not joking, right before recording this, on my feed, I was watching an interview on a prominent podcast where someone was asking the guest, what happens if we don't adopt artificial intelligence? And the guest's response was everything short of not that you'll be left behind, but it's essentially game over for you. Like, just tap out of the game of business, write it off. It's over. These are really extreme ways of thinking when it comes to artificial intelligence adoption. And I don't think it's healthy, to be completely honest. Does AI give you an advantage in business? Absolutely. It can streamline a whole lot of different things that you do in your business. It can create efficiencies where there has been resistance and drag. Absolutely. Is it the be all and end all? No. It doesn't have that capacity. And I might end up eating my words at some point, I'm sure I will, that it will reach a point where it makes us completely redundant from a business. That's possible. I don't want to rule that out. But when people are saying with such certainty that they know what's going to happen if you don't adopt artificial intelligence, or they do know exactly what's going to happen and that you're going to be positioned to the greatest advantage if you do adopt artificial intelligence, that's arrogance, because the truth is we don't know what's going to happen. None of us do. And if you ask artificial intelligence, it doesn't know either. We're all guesstimating. For example, I know of businesses today that have zero social media presence because this is what it's being compared to. It's what these experts are saying when it comes to business especially, is that if you don't adopt artificial intelligence, that's the equivalent of not setting up a social media account for your business. Okay, fair enough, but I know businesses that are doing over $3 million a year that have no social media presence. And their website is straight out of 2004. It's embarrassing, but they're still doing $3 million a year in revenue, which is enough for them. They don't particularly want to grow it and expand it. This fear-mongering is wild. And I don't think people even realize they're fear-mongering because they're more focused on trying to sound like they know what they're talking about. So they need to speak in extremes. They need to speak to, it's all good if you adopt AI and it's all bad if you don't. But nothing in life is that black or white, at least in my experience. So we're pretty much across the board in terms of what we see AI replacing from a job standpoint. We can see it replacing a lot of knowledge work. Think about any job that requires advice, lawyers, accountants, even some health physicians to an extent, just from the advice standpoint. I know a lot of people are using AI to get health advice. And we're also seeing it affect people's worlds when it comes to tech and coding. These are all the places that it was expected to create a lot of disruption. And then we're hearing what AI is not going to be replacing. Things like manual labor, building houses, carpentry, plumbing, electricians, anything that requires an understanding of physical labor to some extent. AI has not replaced yet. Apparently that's coming in the future with artificial intelligence robotics. And then we'll have to face that hurdle when that arrives. But even still, I don't think it's going to be a complete annihilation of those areas. There will still need to be managers of the robots if that's where we're headed. So this is where I think the conversation of artificial intelligence starts to get interesting, in that AI can't replace relationships. Not in the way that you think. So I know a lot of people are developing a relationship with some of these chatbots. There are reports that they're becoming romantic. That's a topic for another day. But people are developing a relationship of trust. You can only have a relationship with someone if there is an established trust there. And so people are developing a trust, just like they had to develop a trust for the internet. They had to develop a trust for Yahoo when it was a thing, and Google. And then we saw that with social media as well. People were developing a sense of trust with content creators and social media influencers. So they were trusting the individuals more than the brands that were faceless. What's happening now is people are developing a trust with these chatbots and these large language models. What AI can't do is look you in the eye and have a heart-to-heart conversation with you where they deeply understand who you are as a person and your entire history, the way a family member might be able to, or a childhood friend. You can give it as much context as you want about who you are, but there are subtleties and nuances that artificial intelligence cannot grip its coded fingers around, if I can say that, which also opens up the conversation around intuition. I don't really talk about intuition very much publicly because a lot of the people that I draw into my life come from a background of overthinking, being very much in their mind. But intuition is a very big part of my life and the work that I do. Now, I define intuition as the literal definition: inner knowing. It's a knowing that comes from within. And if you're watching the video of this, when I'm saying that, I'm pointing to my chest, not my mind. The mind is very much about knowledge and analysis. It has the desire to recognize patterns. It has the desire to create meaning out of things and connect associations. So associate having a large number in your bank account with a sense of freedom. So it creates these associations, which then trigger feelings. That's very much the mind. However, intuition is different. Some people refer to intuition as gut. I've got my own thoughts about that, and that is that the gut is very much about the lower emotions: guilt, fear, anxiety, shame. Whereas intuition doesn't have emotions attached to it. It's quite objective. When you have an intuition about something, when you have an inner knowing, there's just clarity and certainty, and there's no emotion attached to it. If there is emotion that comes in, it usually comes in a few moments later when you start to think about what your intuition provided to you as an insight. And when you start to think about it, you enter the oh shit spiral of, if I actually do or follow through on whatever my intuition is suggesting I do, I have to face things that scare me about this. That's a later thing, but when your intuition hits, it's usually crystal clear and objective. There's no attachment to an outcome as far as our intuition is concerned. So intuition is something that AI can't replace, because AI is very much about logical and rational thinking and critical thinking, but not necessarily about intuitive experiences. So you cannot replace your intuition with AI, because the intuition that you feel is when everything looks good on paper with the opportunity that's in front of you, but something about it doesn't feel right. Something about it is telling you this isn't it. This might go pear-shaped if I follow through with this. Intuition is when you walk into a room and you feel a visceral change in the atmosphere and something tells you it doesn't make sense for me to be here. And it's instant. It's not a fear response. It's not a panic. It's a genuine sense of, I don't think I should be here right now. Or the opposite. Sometimes you have an intuitive hit where you walk into a room or into a space or into a home, and it's like you're returning back to a home you never knew, even if it was the first time you've entered that space. I've felt that when I've traveled to some countries. I feel like I've returned home and I've never been there before. This is something AI can't replace. And along with that, the other thing it can't replace is you living your life. Like AI can't go and live your life for you. It can assist you in living that life. It can message your friends to organize a catch up in person to go and grab a coffee. But AI is not going to go and order your coffee and drink it for you and catch up with your friend. That's up to you to do. And this is something I talk about in my coaching with clients, because sometimes they'll give me undue praise. You're amazing. You changed my life. You did all these things. And I'm like, I facilitated it, but you're the one that did the work. And then you went and took action on the changes that you created. I can't do that for you. You have to do that. I'm an advisor. I guide you through changing your view on certain things. I help you reframe things. I help you change your experience of past events. I can do all those things, but you're the one doing the work. It's like giving a personal trainer all the credit for the shape that you're in and how fit you've become. You were the one doing the push-ups. They were just holding you accountable to doing the push-ups and maybe counting how many push-ups you've done and making sure that you kept a decent form. But they weren't the ones doing the push-up. You were. So the same is true with AI. You're the one that's living your life. You're the one that's running your business. You're the one that's saying no or yes to opportunities in your life. AI can only go so far. And this is what we need to remember. So when people say, if you don't adopt AI, you're going to be left behind, maybe, but we don't actually know if that's true. We just don't know. There are people out there that are still running very small businesses that's enough for them, using the old invoice books with the carbon copy paper. They don't even print digital invoices and emails. They handwrite their invoices out. I know it's ridiculous, but they still do it, and it's fine. Like, they get by. Sure, they're not Elon Musk, but they don't want to be. So I think we need to take a step back and stop buying into the fear-mongering, because what's actually happening with all this talk about AI and how scared people are about how it's changing the economy, it's changing business, it's changing financial lives of individuals, it's replacing people's jobs. The more important thing to sit with there is what fear it's bringing up for you and working through that fear, changing the way you feel about it. Because AI is not the problem. It is a problem, but it's not the problem. The real issue here is the underlying fear that you're wrestling with. And that's probably based on some past experience. So when you identify what the fear is, and you're able to trace it back to when it first started or the first time it happened for you, you'll start to develop clarity as to why you're so scared of AI. I'll give you a quick example of this. A few months back, I was working with a client who is in the knowledge work space and media space. And one of the things she was wrestling with was this underlying fear of AI replacing her job and all of us in terms of our jobs. She's like, for whatever reason, I can't shake the fear. So we dug into it, and it ultimately came down to this fear of losing stability and security, particularly financially. We managed to trace it back many years ago when she was, I say many, like she was really old. It was probably only about 15 years ago. And she was in her, I think it was early to mid 20s. And right at that time, she had lost her job and her parents were going through a divorce. So there was a lot of instability for her. And so what she then attached to and created a lot of security and stability around was her mother's home. She stayed with her mum for a little while. And so in her mind, anything that showed signs of disrupting her status quo and the way her life was operating felt like it was an existential threat, because it reminded her of when she was made redundant for apparently no reason. Like, it just came out of nowhere. There was no warning. She just got let go. And she thought she was doing a great job. So she wasn't sure why she got let go, but it happened. And so it created this sense ever since then, particularly professionally, that moving forward, no matter how good things are going, especially with her work, there's a part of her that's waiting for the other shoe to drop, as we say. Like she's waiting for the inevitable bad news to arrive. And right now, especially over the last several years, she's been in a really strong position for job security and she's doing really well. She's actually thriving. She loves what she's doing. But there's been this part of her that's just waiting to be let go and lose her job. And then when ChatGPT and Claude and Manus and Grok all came on the scene, and all the businesses in her space were talking about AI adoption and how it's replacing people on the team, her mind went, that's the clue, and that's what's going to lead to me being made redundant again in this situation. So all she needed was another story to feed the pre-existent narrative she had that security, or job security at least, is never guaranteed. So AI was already fueling a pre-existent fear. It was just now with a different topic. It was now AI. Before that, it was different competitors in the marketplace were essentially going to make her redundant. So my suggestion here is to delineate your personal fears that are coming up from the narrative that's out there. Because it's very easy to buy into what people are saying about the narrative of AI, but the truth is we actually don't know what's going to happen. We just don't. And we're all finding out together in real time. No one is finding out before you and I. They might just be finding out at a larger scale. But we're all working this out together as we go. As the saying has been said several times now with AI, the genie's been let out of the bottle and we don't know how to get it back in. That can be scary, that can be exciting, that can be both, it can be neither. My encouragement for you, though, is to work on whatever fears show up with you as this develops and work through your fears, resolve those, because that will give you clarity and certainty in a space that's changing and evolving significantly and rapidly. Because what we know, psychologically speaking, is that when we're stuck in a state of fear or anxiety, we don't think clearly, we tend to act out of desperation, and we don't see the opportunities that are ahead of us. But if you work through your fears to the point where they're no longer affecting you and dictating your decision making, you start making clearer decisions in a very orderly way, maybe even systematic, while everyone else is running around panicked and freaking out about whatever's happening. Whatever's happening isn't necessarily that relevant. It's how you respond to what's happening. It's how you respond to the circumstances. The same is true when we all went through COVID and all the lockdowns. The same is true when the 2008, 2009 crisis happened. The same is true with the 2001 crash or the 2000 crash. For every natural disaster or economic catastrophe or geopolitical nightmare that's unfolded, it's not necessarily about what happens because we can't control those environmental factors. These are external environmental factors that we as individuals can't change. What we do have control over is how we respond to it. And the way we control how we respond to something is by taking control of our perceptions and how we feel about it. And so by managing that, you become your own little lighthouse with the stormy, windy seas around you. And you're able to just hold fort and find your way through it and keep the light on. So do me a favor, and especially yourself. The next time you're scrolling or the next time you've got the TV on or something and someone's talking about AI and how if you don't, you're essentially dead in the water and you should be adopting it and you should be running with it and you should be scared of it and all these different fear-mongering concepts, just ask yourself, how much more do they know than the rest of us? Maybe they know heaps more than we do. But they don't know how the future's going to go because they're not in the future. None of us are. We're all here now, working it out as we go. So take a step back. It's easier to buy into what they're all saying, and I'm not saying they're lying. I'm not saying there's some conspiracy going on. Truth is, I don't know what's going on there. What I do know is I want to take control of how I perceive it, how I feel about it, and I will work through any fears that show up for me so they're not influencing the way I respond as I continue to learn about everything that's happening in real time. All of that is to say, I don't know for certain if things are going to be okay or if things are going to be absolutely horrible. What I do know is I'm willing to go and find out. And remember, there are things that AI will not be able to replace. Develop your skills in those areas and it's going to be okay. It'll remind you just how much of a human you are and how much of a human AI can never be. You got this. Make sure you subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.